Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. Today, it's just me and Clint chatting about our second official season of Coach Better. In this Spotlight episode, Clint and I are discussing our big themes for the podcast during the first semester of the 2020-2021 academic year. You'll also notice that we're highlighting a few great ways to continue learning with us here at Eduro Learning in this episode, including 3 exciting new options, our expanded lineup of Mastermind Ed cohorts on social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, our brand new Women Who Lead program for aspiring female leaders, and opportunities for private mentoring for anyone looking for coaching conversations in a remote setting. In the full-length episode, we also talk about what a return to school in such uncertain times may look like, particularly for coaches who may be working in a hybrid or remote model. As always, we love your feedback, so if you have questions about coaching or just want to chat with us about this episode, please join our Coach Better Facebook group or connect with us on social media at Eduro Learning. And of course, to hear that full episode, subscribe to Coach Better wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy today's episode, you will love all of the resources and professional learning experiences we're curating for you here at Eduro Learning. Check out our website to see all of our latest offerings at edurolearning.com. All right, welcome back to another episode of Coach Better. Today, it's just me and Clint, and we're here to introduce our Season 2, which is actually, I think, like our Season 3, but it's our formal Season 2 because we're restructuring things and we're doing things a little bit different this year. And we wanted to take some time to share a little bit about what that's going to look like and give you some insight into some of the episodes that are going to air this season. This leads me into our Season 2 episodes, because the first half of the semester, so September and October, we have conversations with a variety of educators, primarily in international schools, but a couple in US-based schools, about social justice and bringing justice and equity into our classrooms through the lens of coaching. And as you're talking about kind of redefining what normal looks like, bringing joy into our classrooms and looking at what is necessary versus what is just clutter, I think those conversations hit at the core of what that means. What is education really about? What is the purpose of what we're doing here? And if it isn't to create a better future, to provide an equal opportunity, to emphasize, justice and equity for everyone, then what are we doing here? We're just getting bogged down by systems that have been put in place to continue to perpetuate the system that we have in place right now. I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can. So those conversations, Clint, you weren't part of them because it was during, a lot of these conversations were recorded during the pandemic and life was insane for both of us. And so they just kind of happened. But I talked to Ken Shelton, who's based out of LA. I talked to Sausan Jabber, who's based out of Chicago. Darnell Fine, who's based out of Singapore, and Elisa Perez, who's currently in Colombia. And all of them are working on diversity, equity, inclusion, justice in various different lenses. And I think a common theme that came out that maybe listeners, watchers, you will see as you hear is that a piece of education, an experience in education should be bringing us and our children joy. That's why we're there. And it should be providing an opportunity for authentic voice and representation and an experience that helps make them better humans. And I think maybe if we can take this opportunity of COVID-19 where school looks completely different, we can kind of mentally throw away some of those structures that we've had in place and look at how we can create an environment that is equitable for all of our students, no matter what our setting or context is.
one, I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to meet
They were good.
to take part in those conversations, right? Because I think they're going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys talked about. Um, Two, it's really funny that we always in education talk about that teachable moment.
Mm,
You know, I think the world is in such a state at the moment with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and a lot of the social justice movements, and I think people are looking around and taking care and taking note. um, I feel like sometimes our curriculum are so packed solid that we don't have the time to be like,
yes.
this is a really important moment in history. Like, this is a really important moment that everybody will remember. This is convergence, right, of so many things going on right now. How are we able to respond to that? How are we looking at our world as a teachable moment and going, we can see injustices happening. There's all of these things that are going on in Portland right now, and questions about all of these, unmarked detentions going on. Like, how would we bring that into our classroom? Or are we going to go, no, no, today we're supposed to be reading
Yes.
this novel from 1843, and we're just going to stick to that? Or, today we're just going to be factoring quadratic equations because that's what our curriculum is. Or how do we have that space? And maybe, going back to the Marie Kondo, it's not sparking joy, but it is sparking inspiration, and it is sparking conversation, and it is sparking, citizenry in like that most fundamental, how are you contributing to the world uh, concept. Where do we have the space for that in our curriculum? And how, if we're in this hybrid learning environment, which so many of us are going to be in, how are we able to leverage that so that those students are able to find their voice, find their passion, dig deep, and really have a connection with the world around them, whatever part of the world they happen to be in.
Well, I think that's it. That's the piece that is resonating for me. It is a piece that is resonating for me a lot. And what you're saying and what I've been thinking about is like reframing the way school looks now because of the COVID-19 situation. We have this great opportunity to do so much more with technology that maybe we weren't always aware that we had the potential to do. But we also have this opportunity to reframe that, like you're saying, world events are happening now. This is a big moment in history. If we can't find connections to make our curriculum relevant to today, right now, we're missing a big piece. Like, this is something that needs to be part of every subject area. It doesn't mean you're teaching history or you're teaching politics in every subject area, but you're thinking about how you look at your lens through a lens, how you look at your subject area through a lens of justice or equity, so that you're not exclusively teaching, let's say, white explorers, if you're doing a unit on explorers, for example, or so that you're not continually perpetuating a system that advantages one group over another, because that's the way you've always done it. Like, now is just a great time to make that connection to what's going on in the world and make that connection real for you in your teaching practice and your curriculum, and also for your students and them being able to articulate what they're seeing, feeling, experiencing, and how they need their thoughts to be represented out in the wider world. So I think that piece of connection to change is very, like, it's like a big flashing light in my mind right now.
Yeah, I mean, we know that our curriculum needs to be reshaped, and we have a very can't even put it in words, right? We have this momentous occasion to give us guidance in how we can reshape, those large contours of our curriculum.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's the first kind of half of the fall semester, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, September and October. And then in November and December, it's more COVID recordings. Clint knows that I'm so type A. I don't know what happened. Like, I'm not normally this planned this far in advance. I know I'm often planned very far in advance, but not this far. But just things snowballed during this time. And I was also working on another project that Coach Better listeners will hear a lot about, which is the Women Who Lead project. And that was connecting me to a whole bunch of other people. And so all these conversations kind of steamrolled and happened when, I was basically inside all day long. So just scheduling conversations all day long. And those were maybe a little bit more about coaching as leadership and making coaching your culture and the power of coaching for coaches. And I think that is another really interesting lens that we can look at in terms of our coaching practice and how coaching is such a big part of leadership and how being coached is such a valuable part of being a leader. And I think those kind of two ideas wrap up together nicely in that second half of the first semester. And for those conversations, I talked to Allison Rodman, who talks about the value of having a mentor as a learning leader, Tanya Gilchrist, who talks about overcoming imposter syndrome as an instructional coach, Kristen Zimke, who talks about making coaching a culture, and Emily McLean, who talks about how instructional coaching fits within the context of teacher appraisal. And that conversation, Clint was actually there for because it just happened to coincide well with our timing.
Yeah, and that conversation with Emily was really interesting. She's come from an international school background, and now she's working at a private school in Australia. And how she talked about how she uses coaching from her admin position, from her leadership position, to help support her teachers, both for appraisal and obviously for own personal and professional growth. I think it is something that we often, I don't know if we overlook it, but it's one of those things that maybe we don't pay enough attention to, is how leaders are acting as coaches to support, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 50, maybe it's 75 teachers that you are supervising, and to move the school and to move your programs into the direction that you need, and to move those teachers, right, who may not be looking for new jobs, especially if you're working at a public school, or if you're working, at a non-international school, there's high rates of transiency. You might have schools where teachers don't go anywhere. So how are you ensuring, or how are you encouraging that growth amongst your staff? How are you encouraging that growth amongst your colleagues and your peers? Even if you're not the instructional coach, how are you using coaching techniques and coaching principles to support your colleagues, your team members, your department members? And I think that's a really important aspect of coaching that we can dive into even further and think about how it applies to everyone.
Yeah, and what's really good about that concept that coaching is valuable for everyone is that it's valuable for you as a coach as well, and it's valuable for you as a leader. And I think that is a message that came out loud and clear, not only in the Coach Better episodes that we're talking about now, but also in the Women Who Lead conversations that I had with all of those women leaders over the course of the spring semester. And I think seeing coaching, of course, I think coaching is valuable. I'm a coach. I've been a coach for a long time, but hearing it through the lens of heads of schools and principals and curriculum directors about the way that they are using coaching strategies in their conversations to lead their organizations really hit home for me. And then also going in and editing these podcasts, that as coaches, we are demonstrating so many different leadership skills, and as coaches, we should be proud of that and excited about that, and kind of focusing in on how we're doing that, because it is an opportunity. Growing other people is a leadership skill, and that's what coaching is.
And I think what we'll find, A, in the conversations that we have on this podcast, but B, just going forward, is I would posit that your most effective leaders are leaders who believe in coaching.
Yes.
And leaders who actively coach those that they work with. And I know certainly from a very personal point of view, that's the type of person that I want to work for. That's the type of person that I want to work with. I think that old school top down, I'm the CEO, this is how it is, what I say goes, don't question. I think we've got some examples of how well that does or doesn't work in our world at the moment. But the people who are asking questions and who are supporting and who are encouraging people to grow, they're the ones who are going to provide, I think, the strongest, healthiest, most dynamic organizations, which is what we're going to need going forward, are dynamic, Absolutely. Healthy organizations.
And that's a perfect tie-in to the beginning of this conversation. We talked about how COVID-19 has had such a big impact on everything. And I think that kind of wraps up our conversation really nicely. But before we actually hang up the call, I do want to say that we're trying something new for this semester, which is that we're planning to only have a new episode every other week and then bring back a previous episode, because we have actually done I think as of right now, I'm just checking my schedule. As of right now, I think this episode is episode 88. And like, so we've done a lot of episodes, and I feel like a lot of them people haven't had a chance to watch or listen to because they come every week and teachers are so busy and they don't always have time. So what we're trying to do is theme each month and give you some new content to think about, and then give you some existing content to connect back to. So you'll be seeing some maybe familiar faces within our spotlight episodes for this semester. We're going to see how that goes. So listeners and viewers, please leave us a comment if you're watching this in YouTube, or send us a message and let us know what you think about this new format. I really want to try to capitalize on my type A organizational skills and get some themes going, and really try to have conversations that are centered or focused around something that's meaningful over a period of time, so that we can kind of connect back to the great people that we have connected with and the great people we are planning to connect with in the future.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how everyone likes it. So thanks everybody for listening to us today, and thank you, Clint, for making time for this conversation today. See you again soon.
Let's do it again soon.
All right. Bye.
See you, Kim.
Thanks for watching today's episode. Don't forget to check out edurolearning.com for more great learning opportunities, and connect with us on social media at Eduro Learning to stay up to date with everything we share.